If you've been a Star Wars fan as of late, I'm sure you've heard the term filler. Oh, that was a filler episode. This season has been full of filler. Everything in Star Wars nowadays is just filler. The Mandalorian, The Bad Batch, The Book of Boba Fett, and especially The Clone Wars have all been accused of having these so-called filler episodes. So what exactly is a filler episode? Filler episodes, as defined by TV Tropes, are entries in generally continuous serial that are unrelated to the main plot, don't specifically alter the relation between the characters, and generally serve only to take up space. Traditionally, this term is widely used in the anime fandoms, where filler episodes refer to anything that isn't in the original source material. For anime, many filler episodes are created because the anime runs alongside the manga, and in some cases, the anime could potentially catch up to or overtake the manga. So many shows need to create filler content so they can avoid that issue. A filler episode's main defining factor is its lack of importance to the overall story. Basically, this means the episode can be skipped without the audience missing out on anything important about the overall story. If you take a look at any of the discourse surrounding the most recent seasons of The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch, you will quickly see that a very vocal section of the fanbase calling a lot of episodes from those shows filler, meaning that there are a lot of episodes that are unrelated to the main plot, don't significantly alter the relations between the characters, and generally only serve to take up space. And when you take a step back and objectively look at both shows, you can't really deny it. Yet, I'd argue both shows demonstrate different types of filler episodes. I'd like to call adventure filler and pointless filler. Adventure filler is what I describe as an episode of a show that doesn't progress the plot or characters, but instead takes the titular characters on a one-off adventure that may or may not be referenced in a later episode. For instance, look at The Bad Batch. In seasons 1 and 2, there is quite a bit of filler episodes that don't really have an impact on the overall plot or just Star Wars as a whole. These episodes are simply one-off little adventures that put the characters in interesting situations for adventure's sake. This type of filler, in my opinion, is much better because it's just a mission you'd probably see any of them go on at any given time. Is it important? No, probably not, but it's fun, and it makes us, the audience, grow more attached to these characters. However, on a rewatch, you could easily find a list online about which episodes you could skip just so you can stick to the story at large. Essentially, it's good for the first watch to make us grow attached to these characters, but on a second watch, you already know the characters, so you won't be missing much by skipping these one-off adventures. This is the same for the Clone Wars. You don't need to watch every episode of the show to understand what happens. In fact, this type of adventure filler works really well for the Clone Wars because it is, for all intents and purposes, an anthology show. Hell, even calling one of those episodes filler is almost wrong because it's not serialized. When people call the Clone Wars episodes filler, they just mean it doesn't add to the lore. The Bad Batch, on the other hand, is kinda serialized and kinda not. So the Adventure of the Week model works excellently just as long as they eventually get back to the plot and stick to it, as they do. The other type of filler is pointless filler. Pointless filler is what I describe as an episode of a show that doesn't progress the plot or characters, but instead takes the titular characters on an adventure in the middle of a much bigger issue that does not pertain to the story in the slightest. Take Season 3, Episode 6 of The Mandalorian. The Lizzo and Jack Black episode. Din and Bo must find the fractured Mandalorian clans in order to unite their people and retake Mandalore. They go to the planet the Mandalorian privateers are stationed on, they find them, but first must complete a droid murder mystery and stop a Count Dooku loyalist. After that's done, Bo beats Axe, gets the Darksaber, and acquires a powerful Mandalorian fleet. Basically anything from minute 8 to 34 is pointless, with the last 5 minutes being extremely important. So unlike typical filler episodes on shows like The Bad Batch and The Clone Wars, you can't actually skip this episode. If you don't watch this episode, you'll have no idea how Bo-Katan found the other Mandalorians or acquired the Darksaber. Sure, you can skip through it, but on a rewatch that's A, tedious and makes the viewer rather skip the episode outright, and B, pointless because when everything is said and done, only 10-ish minutes out of 40 are important. So why waste the time watching it when you can just look it up and get a refresher? So in the grand scheme of things, this episode is technically not filler, but rather has a pointless filler in the middle of the episode for fluff. Either give us a filler episode or give us a plot-driven episode. You can't have both, because when you have both, it creates this disconnect with the audience. We get this, what's the point feeling? Like, why did you open an episode with a fantastic ship battle that hooks us in and makes us want to know more about what our main characters are going to do, then completely disregard that momentum and throw in a plot that follows Dr. Pershing for nearly 40 minutes? Now, yes, I know the Pershing stuff was to show how the New Republic is rehabilitating ex-Imperials, and that one chick is clearly a spy and is meant to show us that the the Empire is still alive and well and working from the shadows. Yes, I understand that. So have the whole episode be about that. Don't tease us with stuff we're really interested in and then blueball us for 40 minutes of a character we don't really know or care about. If the whole episode was about Pershing, then I feel the whole thing would have worked better because that expectation of a badass Mando episode wouldn't be established in the beginning and then ignored for something else, and then the audience would be more willing to accept Pershing's character. If the Jack Black Lizzo episode was at the beginning of the season and was just another Mando adventure before we really got into the meat of the Gideon threat, it would have worked better because at that time we wouldn't know what's at stake yet, and it wouldn't feel like a waste of time. If the whole season was about uniting the Mandalorian clans instead of just doing it all in one episode with little to no repercussion of years of conflicting viewpoints, it would have worked so much better because that's that good drama we love to see. If for whatever reason your story needs to have filler content, make it so that it at least feels necessary. Make it a relaxed episode where we grow more attached to the characters, take us to another side of the universe we wouldn't otherwise see, or simply take us on an adventure. The Mandalorian Season 3 was, to me, a massive step back in terms of quality. Now, it wasn't sequel trilogy levels of bad because they actually did have a story. They just took a long time to get to it, and I wouldn't even call it bad either. This season was just aimless. Like the whole season was filler itself to just get Din and Grogu back to their status quo. And the Bad Batch Season 2 ended right when things started to get really spicy, making a lot of the prior episodes of the season feel like simple filler adventures. Also, that Crosshair episode was an absolute banger, so if you haven't watched the Bad Batch yet, do yourself a favor and watch Season 2, Episode 12, The Outpost. Thank me later. I feel that I, and a lot of Star Wars fans, feel this way because we know they can do better because we've seen them do better. I understand filler episodes are important in some regards, but when the filler episodes are detrimental to the pacing and the overall plot of the show, then it may be time to reevaluate your story structure. All the side quests this season of The Mandalorian just felt pointless and greatly hurt the pacing of the show, whereas all the side quests during the Bad Batch just felt like a day in the life of the team and made us grow closer to the characters. In future seasons of The Mandalorian, I really hope they take this into account because what they're doing now is losing them fans. Whether or not the show's pacing and story structure is off due to studio intervention remains to be seen, but I really hope they figure their shit out soon. Make us grow attached to the characters through their actions and adventures, not resent them for wasting time. Show us all the weird Jack Black planets, take us behind the scenes of the New Republic, but don't do it at the detriment of your story. Because this current path they're on, this is not the way.